What is up, you guys? Welcome back into another One Piece post-game video. Just in case this is your first time tuning into one of these, what we like to do here is that we like to go through the comment section of the previous video just to see what everybody's talking about. The theories, the opinions, the jokes. We're here for all of it, brother. So, with that being said, let's get right into it with the top comment, which is from me, myself, and I just made a couple of quick updates. So in this video, I talked about how Scopper's line about not fighting somebody with Conqueror's Haki before was a little bit odd to me and how I wanted to wait for more translations. And boom, TCB released, and they did make it very apparent that Scopper was talking about God Knights having Conqueror's Haki. Based on the translations I read initially, they were very off, and it kind of made you wonder if Scopper fought any Conqueror Haki opponents at all. And I even showed the dialogue too, so you guys saw what I was seeing. But yes, now that we have more translations, it is apparent that he's talking solely about the God Knights. And, that doesn't look good for the God Knights, brother. What does that say about Garling? Does Garling not have Conqueror's Haki? Shanks and Shamrock's father doesn't have it? I don't know. My cope right now is that Garling wasn't present during the Shanks rescue missions. I mean, hell, when you look at that silhouette of the God Knights rolling up on the Roger Pirates, you don't see Mr. Moonhead on that ship at all. Maybe he's back within the ship's cabin, but either way, we don't see him. So maybe the ones with Conqueror's Haki, the immortals with it, simply didn't fight the Roger Pirates, but even I know that's crazy copium. Second thing I did want to clarify is that in my translation that I read, when Loki turns into the mythical monster, he shouts out, "Bow!" But, of course, in TCB, it is simply a roar, which kind of the same thing, but I know people are using the bow to theory craft their ideas for Loki, so I just wanted to drop that right there. And now, for the last thing, the reason why that silhouette where you see Loki, like, you know, in his Zoan form doing his thing, the reason why that looks weird, and I didn't notice this until way later, but apparently it's because Loki is ripping off King Harald's head in that panel. I didn't see that at first. Somebody had to mention it to me, and then I went back and I looked and I was like, oh shoot, you're right. Like literally, Loki is ripping off Harald's head. And when I first saw that, I thought that was a hoof, just because it was so oddly shaped. But nope. It is indeed Loki with the claw arm tearing off his Pops' dome. So now that we have those clarifications out of the way, time to get into the real first comment. And it comes from Shadow himself. Did you notice Harald's arm when he came to his senses? It happened after Loki's attack, which damaged his arm with the tattoo. Then, after it regenerated, he lost control again. Yep, and this is massive. Because this could be a solid hint for two things. One, how to damage the God Knights without using Conqueror's Haki. And two, how to save Gunko. Because that is one of the main things happening in current Elbaph, right? Gunko is possessed by Emu. Brook knows her, potentially wants to save her. So how do we do that? Well, Son Nika could have a part to play in it. Brook could have a part to play in it. But hell, maybe all we have to do is lop off her arm or whatever body part has the tattoo, and that would free her up momentarily. I think that could be absolutely massive. So this next comment says, how does Oda draw something so heartbreaking and badass at the same time? That panel of the final swing is a masterpiece. I love it, especially because you can see where Oda divides the Conqueror's Haki with Loki's attack and the lightning from Ragnir. It was like perfectly balanced. I love that so much. And of course, like after that, you have Loki crying. And then before that, you had the panel where King Harald's like, oh, I love you, son. And it's like, yeah, that's some good stuff, man. That's some good stuff. My take on Gabon's line was that Harald was the first God Knight with Conqueror's Haki. Yep. And my cope right now, I have a lot of cope for the God Knights. But one of my copes is that the God Knights that Gabon and Roger fought were cycled out. You know, Gabon fought the old guard, but what about the new guard like Shamrock and Killingham? They have potential. You know, Shamrock, I would put maybe not money down. I'd put Monopoly money down and say that Shamrock has a high chance of having Conqueror's Haki. If Shanks has it, Shamrock, I think, is looking pretty okay. I was about to say he has to have, but I was like, okay. I don't want to go that deep into it, but, you know, I'm holding out hope, man. I'm holding out hope. This says, Ratasker is the mischievous squirrel that scurries up and down the world tree Yggdrasil, carrying insults and slanderous messages between the eagle at the top and the serpent Nidhogg chewing at its roots, fueling their animosity and the tree's slow decay. Yes. This is the Norse lore for the squirrel hammer, if that is what it actually is. We do not have anything confirming that yet. We simply know that Ragnir can turn into a squirrel. Is it the mythical squirrel, Ratasker? Not too sure yet, but I do like the lore behind it. I think that is what Odin's going for. I mean, hell, we saw Odin's crows at the beginning of this arc. We saw Nidhogg, we saw Jormungandr, we saw a Draugr, we saw so many Nordic monsters and creatures. So yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if this is what Oda is going for with Ragnir. But the real question now becomes, how much of the Norse lore is Oda actually going to put into this squirrel? Because he doesn't have to, right? I mean, hell, look at Nidhogg. He turned Nidhogg into a lightning dragon in the manga. And then, of course, the Draugr were like these crazy-ass skeletons, which they're a little bit different in Norse mythology, or at least there's a lot of iterations of them. So Oda can really play around with this lore, and I am curious to see what he's going to do with it. Because while we don't have an eagle yet, there is the Heaven Realm that we have not seen. So maybe Ragnir does want to go up there and see an eagle. Maybe Loki is representative of Nidhogg. And hell, maybe, if not an eagle, it's the owl at the Owl Library. There's a lot of ways to spin the original Norse story into the One Piece universe. This says, squirrels protecting their stash of fruit is very on brand. It is. I forgot squirrels actually do that. Squirrels. I feel like when I think about like an animal protecting its stash, I kind of just go to rats. Yeah, I mean, I had pet rats. I think that's why. But I love squirrels too, man. Squirrels are pretty damn cool in my book. Loki, for sure, got the Nidhogg fruit brother. Ragnir, being a squirrel, is super reminiscent of God of War when the squirrel communicates with Nidhogg at the bottom of the tree. Hella foreshadowing with Loki being tied at the bottom of the damn tree. I love that you capitalized that. I need to play God of War. I actually own all the God of Wars, believe it or not, even the ones on PSP and PS2. But I've just not found the time to play the newest two. So maybe I need to go back and check that out. But yeah, Loki being Nidhogg, I don't mind it. I love the idea of getting a Western dragon devil fruit. If you guys know me, my take on Eastern versus Western dragons, I love Western dragons more. Kaido's cool, but I wanted the wings, brother. Give us the wings! If Loki has that, I'm all for it. And hell, like you said, Nidhogg's lore fits Loki so well. But my only issue is that we saw Nidhogg already in this arc via Killingham's imagination powers. Would Oda really introduce Nidhogg there and then reintroduce Nidhogg as Loki's real mythological devil fruit? Maybe. I don't think it's impossible. He could show us one version that's really goofy and then show us the real deal, which is absolutely busted and way more badass. But I'm not too sure. Like, we literally got so many Norse creatures introduced to us in this arc that I think that's a sign that they're done, right? Nidhogg, Draugr, Thundercloud, which isn't Norse related, but that was like the first one that popped in my mind. Jormungandr, we saw Sleipnir, we saw Odin's crows, and it's like, yeah, like, I feel like that's Oda's way of marking them off the board. And then, of course, we have the squirrel even, right? So, I don't know. But like I said, I'm not opposed to the idea. I think out of all of the popular options, Nidhogg is my favorite. If you held a gun to my head and said, pick side pick, I might pick Nidhogg. You know, Nidhogg might be what I go to. Of course, I have my own personal agenda with Fafnir. I think Fafnir is a very valid route as well. But at the end of the day, Fafnir is just another dragon like Nidhogg. Fafnir just doesn't have the same lore. But Fafnir, you know, killed his father. He became a dragon. It's a curse in of itself. I was like, that could work. And then Fafnir and Ragnir, that could be like a, you know, dual name. And that's why the squirrel is happy. So that's my personal agenda. But at the end of the day, it's a dragon versus a dragon, right? So yeah, you know, potatoes, potatoes. I do like Nidhogg. The lore fits. But we'll see. We will definitely see, man. I guess my main thing is that I just want Loki, no matter what he is, to look badass. I just want him to look badass, man. But those stubby legs, man, that panel of the stubby legs running around, I'm like, okay, I don't know. Maybe that'll be a poll. Will Loki look cool or goofy? Or both? This says, I think he was saying that he never fought God Knights that had conquered Saki. Yes, yes, yes. This says, we got Sai trusting the silhouettes from Oda in the big old 2026. These people never learn, damn it. Wait. The last couple of silhouettes we got were really good. You can't deny it. First up, we had the Shamrock silhouette. Remember that? When Dragon talked about the God Knights, the guy in the middle, it looked just like Shanks. So much so that people thought it was actually Shanks. Lo and behold, it's Shanks' twin brother. Another great example of a good silhouette is Scopper Gabon. People looked at it and they're like, oh my god, is that Scopper? Is that Shiki? Those are the main two options because the silhouette was so fire. Silhouettes, man, they're only getting better as time goes on. So I'm trusting it, dude. I'm trusting it. That squirrel is definitely going to recognize Nika. Yeah, I think it will definitely recognize Nika. When it goes Gear 5th, he'll do the Drums of Liberation, and the squirrel's probably going to start dancing, if I had to guess. I just wonder if the squirrel will be able to communicate how it knows Sun God Nika and how it knows Joy Boy. I think that's the main question. One of my main things is that I really hope Chopper talks to the squirrel. And it's funny, because somebody commented, and they were like, oh, Sai, just because Chopper is an animal doesn't mean he can talk to animals. And that just kind of blew my mind. Because that just goes to show how underutilized Chopper's ability is. Because he has talked to animals. He's talked to the birds at Torino Kingdom. He's talked to multiple animals in the past. And it's like, dude, he can do it. It's just that he doesn't do it that often. So much so that people forget he has that ability. And it's like, dude, Chopper, man, he could give us all the lore between the squirrel and the owl at the owl library. Chopper can do it, man. Chopper can do it. Scopper means, in my opinion, the first Holy Knight with Conqueror's Haki was Harald, and that is why he was having a hard time, yes. And this just goes to show how important it is to have multiple translations and to read the chapter multiple times. Because while translators are doing God's work, they're not infallible, right? Some translations seem a little bit off, they seem a little bit wonky, so that's why I think it is imperative to read TCB, to read the Viz, to read other scan sites that you may frequent. Because each person has a different interpretation of the chapter. And even when I read that line right there, even I was like, wait a minute, like, let me wait for more people to translate this. This seems off. And I'm glad that I did. And I'm also glad that so many of you guys in the comments felt the need to actually correct me, which is why I dropped the pinned comment. I was like, okay, guys, I got the message. Thank you so much. You guys are the best, man. This one says, Harald went out with that Will of D smile. Yeah. Yes. It was really good, man. I loved Harald's final moments. Very different from Rox's final moments, where Rox seemed very beaten and a little bit sad, which does make you wonder. When Garling stabbed Rox, did Rox have the D smile, or was he just frowning because his whole clan got decimated? I don't know. As far as Harald having the D, though, would you guys personally be mad or happy if Harald was revealed to be a D clan member? And by extension, that would mean that Estrid is a D clan member, Loki's a D clan member, Ida is a D clan member, and of course, Hyrule would be a D clan member. I think I'd be cool with it. This would be the second giant family with the D initial. First up, we have Saul, so now we have the Harald family. I wouldn't hate it. I think it makes sense too, given Loki and Hyrule position in the world. I think it would be pretty fine in my book. Come here, you little rat. Oh, I see you. Say hello to Kai, the little goblin who's attacking my PC every time I try to record. Anything to say for yourself, buddy? Oh, wow, that was like a paid actor. There were squirrels all over that cover art. Yes! But it's called Agenda, brother, and we only saw the squirrel that was next to Usopp. We don't pay attention to the rest. But, you know, jokes aside, you're right, yeah. There were squirrels all over that cover art. Who knows? Maybe that's a hint that the 10th Nakama isn't Loki. It's not Yamato, Vivi, Momonosuke, or Bonnie. It's actually just Ragnar, which, no, that couldn't work, right? It could make sense, you know, Luffy would invite the squirrel because it's so dang goofy. But one, the squirrel kind of belongs to Loki right now. And two, we can't have two mascots on the crew. If Ragnar were to join, let's just say it would be a really bad day to be Chopper, right? Of course, Chopper has the whole medicine route, but that's all he'd have at that point, man. Because in terms of power scaling, dude, people are putting this squirrel unironically in the top 10, top 15 strongest of all time. And that's simply because of what King Harald says in this chapter. Like, oh, you know, I couldn't eat the fruit before, but now that I have these God Knight powers, maybe I can beat Ragnar. What? Really? Harald before this chapter couldn't take on Ragnar? I don't know. I think he's being humble. That's my take. Harald was being humble when it came to that comment. Because this is a Harald that was clashing with Roxy Zebek. You're telling me Roxy Zebek would need a power-up to beat Ragnar? Ah, dude, I don't know about that. I think he's just being humble. That's all it is. He's being moot. This says, why are we trying to take this dude's hammer away from him already? Loki has had a hard life. The boy deserves everything he owns. Usopp has like 10-ton hammers. He'll be fine. Ragnar did act like a 10-ton hammer though. What does that mean? Oh, like in terms of like the weight and how it's cracking the ground? Yeah. As far as like taking his hammer away, when I bring up the idea that Usopp gets Ragnar, it's not a permanent upgrade, because I do believe that, you know, Loki will have to wield it in the future. I think it is Loki's weapon, but Ragnar, based on what we've seen, kind of has a mind of its own. So in this arc, for example, if Loki's busy fighting and he's not using Ragnar because he's in his mythological form, yeah, maybe Usopp uses it for a little bit. That is where I kind of draw the line. And the reason why I go for Usopp having a semi-upgrade rather than a permanent one is because Ragnar is straight up busted. Ragnar is very powerful. So that is why I don't want Usopp to permanently have Ragnar. So I am more so in the camp that Usopp will use it a couple of times here in Elbaph, and then it'll go back to its rightful owner, which would be Loki, of course. Think of it like the Avengers and how Captain America picked up Thor's hammer in the final fight against Thanos. It's kind of like that, right? Maybe they toss the hammer around a little bit between Loki and Usopp, and then after the movie, after Elbaph, Thor gets his hammer back, Loki gets his hammer back, and we just keep on sailing. Not trying to take it away from him. It's more like a loan. It's more like a loan. Poor Sai, he didn't catch a break with his beloved God Knights. Yeah, it sucks, man. It sucks. The one group I actually very much enjoy as villains, they just get done so dirty. And that's the thing, right? I enjoy villain groups, and I'm not crazy. I know that villain groups will lose one day. I just hope they look cool before they lose. It's like the Stern Ritter out of Bleach, or, you know, the Akatsuki out of Naruto. It's like, yeah, bad guys. Yes, they will lose, but they gotta ore farm and show off that power before they go down, brother. The God Knights didn't really get that. They really didn't. This says, I think it's the creature from The Ritual 2017 on Netflix, the massive elf-like Wendigo beast. It actually fits really well with the horse analogy you mentioned. In Norse mythology, it's a child of Loki called Moder. Also, happy belated Merry Christmas. Thanks for taking the time to share these videos with us. We really appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching. Like I said, I don't want to get sappy, but I wouldn't be here doing these videos if you guys weren't here at all. As far as the Ritual monster and this goblin on my desk again, I love that Ritual movie. If you guys have not watched The Ritual 2017, I highly recommend it. I have unironically watched that movie 3 or 4 times. It's not scary. It's more of like a suspense movie. And the monster you're talking about, the one that shows up at the very end, I think it's just really cool in general. As far as Loki being that monster, I don't know. It's such a horror character that I can't imagine Loki looking like it. If you guys have watched the movie, you know what I'm talking about. I don't want to put a picture up on screen because that is like a massive spoiler. Like the reveal of the monster is what you watch the movie for. But yeah, highly recommend it. And I do think this is a pretty cool idea. And also shout outs. Thank you for the 25, brother. I really appreciate it. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. This says, Usopp with the squirrel throwing Z's is peak Oda foreshadowing. I think Scopper is saying this is the first time he's fought a Holy Knight with Conquerors. Can't believe this little guy is stronger than Usopp. Okay, this squirrel is stronger than a lot of people, apparently. According to what King Harald said in this chapter, this squirrel would neg diff like 80% of the verse. Insane. And we gotta remember, right? Animals can have hockey. If this little guy has hockey, armament hockey, observation, ooh, that would be insane. I think Loki gets angry with the WG to make him kill his own father. He goes on a rampage across the New World, and Shanks, caring for Loki's life, chained him to save him from the WG. I do agree with this. Yeah, I think this is what it has to be. My main thing is that what has Loki been doing for the past 8 years? Did he spend all 8 years attacking the world government? Or did he spend some of those years looking for Galley Law? Because I think that would be a really interesting plot point. Because one of the main things that Harald and Roxy Zebek told Loki was about Galley Law's existence. So it's like, yo, maybe he goes after them. Because I think that'd be pretty cool. The entire time, Loki was looking for those punk hazard giants. This says, Ragnir's devil fruit is a squirrel, Loki's devil fruit is Ratascor. That would be wild, bro. The squirrel and Ratascor. Double squirrels, huh? Double squirrels. That would be nuts with the capital N. Now, it all makes sense why they let Shanks back in. Oh, into the Holy Land. Yes. Because to their knowledge, the Roger pirates were holding Shanks hostage. Yeah. Which also brings up an interesting plot point now that you mention it. But they only tried to capture Shanks when he was a baby, right? Because when Shanks is a kid-teenager, Shanks was happily fighting with the Roger Pirates. So that must mean that after a couple of years, the God Knights simply gave up. I think. I don't know. Because that does bring up a good question. Like, have the God Knights fought Odin and Douglas Bullet in the past? Or was that beyond their era? I do wonder. This says, watch Loki look like Randy for Monsters, Inc. knowing Oda. Randy is the lizard, right? It's the purple lizard. Man, it's been so long since I've watched Monsters, Inc. Let me see. Monsters, Inc. Randy. Yeah, it's the lizard, dude. I love this guy as a kid. Yeah, I did not like Sully. I didn't like Mike Wazowski. I only like this damn lizard. I actually had a toy of him, too. Yeah, I had a toy of him. Okay, that was good memories. Ain't that a chipmunk and not a squirrel? I don't know. What's the difference between a chipmunk and a squirrel? All I know is that chipmunks have chubby cheeks, but then again, squirrels can also do that. They're essentially the same creature, right? Yeah, I'm looking at images right now. Chipmunks versus squirrels. That is an honest question, I will admit. You can't really tell based off of this chapter, but at the end of the day, they look the same. They make the same sounds. Let's just go with a squirrel. Because of the Ratascor lore, right? For Norse mythology's sake, let's just go with squirrel. Me still choosing Bond Clay. Team God Knights blasting off again. My guess is that Loki's shadowed form is Fenrir, with Loki's horns and pointed snout. Oh, the point in the silhouette. I don't think that's a snout. I think that's more so Loki's goatee. But I could be wrong, right? Silhouette's somewhat deceiving, I will admit. But we'll see about that one. The bow makes me think of Yoshi spitting something out as the keyhole is triggered. And this Loki makes me think of the Conan movies. The second one has a god that looked a lot like this. I never watched the Conan movies. Burrow ate the Kafka Hibino out here looking like a kaiju. You have the blood of a Conquerors inside of you. Yeah, Sanji ain't getting that Conquerors hockey. Whoa. Sanji does have the blood of Conquerors technically running inside of him because his family's royalty. It's the Vinsmoke army. Greetings and salutations, Sai. Ragnir probably knew Noland. Oh, yeah. I wouldn't put money down on it again. Maybe Monopoly money, but Ragnir knowing Noland, or at least the Mont Blanc family, I think it's pretty good. It sounds like something Oda would do, right? Oh, here is a legendary squirrel that has been protecting a legendary devil fruit for all these years, potentially going back to the Void Century. Yes, this squirrel somehow knew a family of people who have nuts for heads. Maybe that's why the Mont Blanc family has nuts for heads. Maybe they were the ones who wielded Ragnar in the past. Maybe there's a giant with a nut head back then. Makes you think a little bit, makes you think. Hyrule and Ida mention, let's go. Bro, they got mentioned. But now the real question becomes, how will Hyrule live up to King Harald and or even just Loki? That I just have no clue of, man. Like, Hyrule is such an anomaly because I don't know how he's gonna get powered up realistically. Like, you know, I've talked about ideas where like, oh, you know, maybe he gets a Gear 5 cloak, maybe he gets Yarul's blade out of his head, maybe there's another weapon, or maybe he eats a devil fruit. But that's all like hypotheticals, because right now, if Hyrule does not get some kind of crazy buff out of nowhere and he stays the same, brother, he's not living up to King Harald, and it's so sad. I really hope Hyrule gets the respect and love he deserves. I personally don't like Hyrule that much, but I wish him the best. I really do. And, you know, he wants to be king of all of the giants. Bro, that's a tall order, man. That's a big dream. And Hyrule, last we saw, got one-tapped by Luffy, Gear 2nd at Dressrosa. I don't want to hold that against him, but that is a canon event. He went on to fight Mac Vice, and he used Gungnir, Elbaph's legendary spear, to finish him off. That was cool. But I bet Loki could have done that with ease. You know, Loki probably would have one-shot Mac Vice. You know, like, Loki would not have struggled. Loki wouldn't have broken all of his bones. And it's like, man, I hope Hyrule gets something. Hell, even just Domi Reversi his ass. Get Hyrule on the opposite team, and I'd be cheering it on. Just anything, brother. Give him a crumb. Please, Oda. With that being said, though, guys, that is it for today's video. Let me know your thoughts on all of these comments down below. I really appreciate you guys for stopping by and checking this out and sticking around until the end. You guys take care. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and of course, Happy New Year's. Hope you have a great 2026, brothers.